The retail sector has been forced to pivot from simply relying on traditional methods of doing business. How then can retailers cope with the fluctuating consumer demands and expectations, and how can they bridge the gap between legacy retailing and highly innovative and engaging digital shopping experiences? For this and more, we're going to be talking to Jeffrey McNulty, an internationally recognized author, speaker, retail leadership coach, and retail analyst. He wrote The Ultimate Retail Manual to help retailers and business leaders drastically reduce the time required to become best in class leaders and retail organizations. Stay with us for more on Jeffrey McNulty. Almost 3 billion people and counting are consuming video content on their devices. BeLive Media helps brands position their products and services to people at a time and manner that's convenient to them. If you would like to reach your customers and clients and stay ahead of your competitors, then connect with us. If you're just joining us, then welcome to Books with Bridgetti. I'm your host, Bridgetti Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa. And our stream is made possible by StreamYard and BeLive Media. This is an audience-centric show, and we are monitoring the comments. So do say hello. If you are brand new, if you've never watched a show before, you are welcome to type out new, and I will give you a shout out. Whether you're watching on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Amazon Live, a huge, big, warm welcome. Before we introduce you to Jeffrey, one of the most powerful things you can do to take charge of the narrative of your brand is to embrace live video marketing into your marketing strategy. But to do this, you'd need a few things. So if you are watching us over on Amazon Live, I've added a few things into the carousel there to set up your streaming studio for success. And one of the things I'm very big on personally is that I live with chronic back and neck pain. So for me, that starts with a great chair that supports your spine. You need a functional chair, you need a desk, you need great audio, you need an external webcam and earphones to avoid feedback. So welcome to Books with Bridgetti, and today my amazing guest is Jeffrey McNulty. He is an internationally recognized author, a speaker, a retail leadership coach, and retail analyst. Jeffrey helps retail organizations with their common pain points by means of consumer insights and actionable strategies. And he's a book which is also in the carousel in Amazon Live. If you're watching us over on Amazon Live, his book is called The Ultimate Retail Manual, and it helps retailers reduce the time it takes to become a best-in-class leader and retail organization. And so with that, let's just give a warm welcome to our amazing special guest, Jeffrey McNulty. Jeffrey, a very warm welcome. I'm so pleased that you are able to join us today. With everything that's gone on in the last couple of years, or year and a bit, it's been a stressful time for people in every single sector, but I think more so the retail sector. Because big changes is needed to take place for them to be able to move forward and not just survive but thrive. So I'm going to kick off with asking you, why did you write the ultimate retail manual?
Hi, Brigida. Thank you for having me on the show, first and foremost. The main actuator for writing the book came from one of my favorite axioms. If you cannot find what you're looking for, create it. So that's kind of what I did. I wrote the ultimate retail manual because I couldn't find a retail book that contained all of the information I wanted. I yearned for one retail book that contained an amalgamation of retail concepts that were portable and easily reproducible, that would generate consistent and sustained success. So throughout my 30-year tenure in the retail sector, I read a plethora of books on leadership, merchandising, coaching, revenue generation, human resources, training, mentoring, and motivation. I wanted to read one book that contained all of the necessary strategies and information that would help me to achieve my professional aspirations. So the universe kept revealing to me that I needed to write a book to share the vast retail knowledge that I acquired throughout my long tenure in the retail sector with others. My family, friends, colleagues, clients, and even collegiate professors were all encouraging me to write a book. I have always believed that the best way to teach others is through leading by example. So I decided to write the book from an empirical results standpoint as opposed to a theoretical ideas perspective, which produces verifiable and actionable results versus conceptual possibilities. When the 10-pillar system is executed consistently, it becomes a proven blueprint towards achieving continued, and that's the key word, continued retail and business success. I personally lived each of the 10 pillars within the manual, so I can personally vouch for their efficacy. The Ultimate Retail Manual was created to assist any new or tenured retail leader, department manager up to the C-suite executive, with acclimating to experiential retail environment while supplementing their existing retail acumen.
Well, I think everybody wants to have that one sort of go-to book. And from what you've just said, that is what you're wanting to produce, is to have that one go-to book that anyone who had questions about the retail industry could go to without having to sit with a stack of books and trying to find answers. And so, having spent about 30-odd years in the retail sector, leading, major corporations as you did, Toys R Us, Barnes and Noble, the Home Depot, Publix Supermarkets, and more. Did the retail sector choose you, or did you choose it? I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I often think about that from time to time. I started in retail in 1982 at Publix Supermarkets in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, as a part-time bag boy. And I started really enjoying the customer and employee interaction and the fast-paced environment. I felt alive while I was helping customers. It really brought joy and pleasure to me to be able to help everyone and walk them to where they needed to go. And it was a supermarket. It was very large for me as the first big box retailer that I started working at. And in 1985, 3 years later, I finally had an epiphany where I realized that I had discovered my life purpose. And I felt blessed to discover this at such an early age. As some people go through their whole lives and don't know what their purpose is, I found out that I really enjoyed retail. And so I really wanted to start moving forward with that career. So I moved on to the Home Depot in 1991, where I started my leadership career. I was enamored by the hustle and bustle of the home improvement sector. Some people are overwhelmed by the fast-paced atmosphere of a Home Depot or a large box retailer. I really reveled and enjoyed it. I felt incredibly blessed for the amazing opportunity to have learned from such retail icons as Bernie Marcus, Arthur Blank, Ron Brill, Ken Langone, Pat Farah, Marvin Ellison, who's now the CEO at Lowe's, Mark Baker, and Tom Taylor while I was at the Home Depot. The Home Depot prepared me for all aspects of retail, and I feel honored that I can share my knowledge with others. So retail kind of gets into your heart and soul. It gets in your blood. And I will always be a positive voice and advocate for the retail sector. So once a retail leader, always a retail leader. People are always approaching me on LinkedIn, and I'm a very positive, outgoing person. I like to post a lot of the positive stuff that's happening in retail, because there's so much doom and gloom and negativity. I like to shout out a lot of the things that a lot of retailers and retail leaders are doing well, because I really believe that the future of retail is very bright.
I know. I mean, that's basically where I met you, was on LinkedIn, because I noticed the things that you were posting. A lot of it is positive. It's encouraging to help the retail sector, and that's why one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to you. And sort of just following on what you said now, with several major retailers filing for bankruptcy, we've seen that all over the world. I'm in South Africa, and we've seen that here. It really has rocked our world. When you've had retailers that's been around for as long as you've been, and suddenly they're closing their doors. That is scary if you are an entrepreneur. That's scary to see that sort of thing. So with the trend of retailers shutting down, do you think it's all a case of doom and gloom because of the pandemic situation that we're currently in? Or do you believe it's an opportunity for the retail industry to reinvent itself? And in order to do that, what kind of digital disruptions do you think we need to pivot?
That's a great question. I like to say that the retail sector is in the midst of a major transformation that is forcing most retailers, not all, but most retailers, to recalibrate their intentions with how they execute their business strategies. The key is we simply have too many retail stores for our new digital environment. Through this, what I call recorrection, the retail sector is readjusting to the changing retail climate. We're going through a retail evolutionary stage that will eventually lead to one of my favorite words is homeostasis. So as of November 2020, the United States had 23 square feet of retail space per capita. I believe Canada had 16 and Australia had 11. So we have way, way more retail space than we actually need. So
we have the same in South Africa. I think it's everywhere.
Oh, outstanding. I guess we're all going in the right direction then, as we're starting to kind of dwindle down. So with the accelerated ascension of e-commerce, omni-channel, digitally native players opening brick and mortar stores, and changing consumer preferences, we no longer require as many physical retail stores. The retail environment has shifted from an unload and drop legacy merchandising strategy to now an experiential environment where customers want to shop utilizing all of their five senses. They want to be immersed. We have entered a new retail ethos where retail is experiencing a repurposing of formats that can adjust to our new digital environment through agility, convenience, and speed. So I created an acronym, I'm sure you've seen this on LinkedIn now, for ensuring sustained retail success called CAPED. Excuse me. It stands for customize, adapt, personalize, engage, and differentiate. And I'll kind of go through each one briefly, what retailers and retail leaders can do. So on the customized front, think of on-demand manufacturing, 3D printing, and bespoke products. Bespoke products is going to be a burgeoning trend in the near future. On adapt, think of adjusting to changing consumer preferences through innovation, strategy, engagement, and execution. On the personalized front, localizing product assortment to match geographical locations and targeted communication. Engage, listening to your customers, employees, leaders, and vendors. This is very, very important. This is the one that some retailers are doing very well and some retailers aren't doing very well at. A lot of times they listen to the customers, but they're not listening to the employees, the leaders, and the vendors. The vendors are a very important resource of information. They see what's going on through the supply chain, what's happening with inventory and stuff of that nature. So they're very important to partner with while remaining consistently active within community involvement. And the last one is differentiate, or what kind of separates your company from the rest. So think of creating proprietary brands, creating exclusivity, providing exemplary service, and implementing employee-focused behaviors. So according to Fast Company, even during the pandemic, I found this stat very, very revealing. More than 80% of retail purchases were made in stores or through retail delivery services. So I coined an axiom that correlates to my prognostication of the future of retail And it's the future of retail is a healthy balance between innovation, technology, and human engagement.
I really, really like that, and I also picked up that you were saying that, we need to pivot from this drop and go sort of thing. Because retail used to be all about stock in and stock out, and that's kind of it. But with the pandemic and having to swift change over to digital, you
Right.
have to find a way of being more engaging. And I also like about what you said was that there's a whole plethora of people that need to be part of this process, that you need to engage as a retailer, people that's got their feet on the ground and who knows what it is that the consumer is looking for, because consumer behavior has changed so much, consumer needs have changed so much, and you need to be in touch with that. So I like that you've touched on all those different pain points. But having said that, moving from legacy systems to a more digital experience isn't as cut and dry. It's not like you can just flip a switch and you've gone from legacy to digital in an instant. There are some risks. It's the same as when I say to people, I feel very strongly that you need to engage video into your marketing strategy because it's immediate. You can fix things, you can be authentic, but switching to digital isn't something that you decide on today and you implement it tomorrow. What are some of the potential risks that you need to be aware of?
Oh, that's a question. Oh boy, we could be here all day. I'll kind of try to go an overview of that question. That's a really important question. Legacy retailing was highly successful for about 150 years. Many retailers continued to open up new stores to generate increased revenue. However, as each retailer kind of continued to grow, they started choosing C and D real estate locations until each company kind of reached a saturation point. So top tier retailers are heavily investing in innovation, infrastructure, supply chain, e-commerce, store remodels, a myriad of store formats. And the most important one is employee-focused behaviors. The retailers that are struggling during this tumultuous environment are reacting slowly to changing consumer behaviors while staying staunchly committed to antiquated strategies. So hubris, ego, and lethargy are death knells to any retailer in 2021. Whenever New Retail Ethos consults with any client, we always ask 3 questions in the very beginning. And these can be summed up by an acronym I created called GAP. And it stands for growth, autonomy, and purpose. So the first question is, how is your succession planning process? Second, what is your policy on granting autonomy to your employees and leaders? And third, how does your culture and values align with employee purpose? So depending on the answers to these questions, we then create a targeted prospectus that will match the client's needs.
I think that those are sort of, the important pain points that one needs to consider, or pitfalls that one needs to consider. What has been, in your opinion, one of the biggest changes or challenges that retailers have faced in terms of managing the organization, especially now, in times of uncertainty? And have they had to make any management style changes? I would imagine that they would have needed to.
Wow, you got some great questions, Brigitte. Hey, keep them coming. I think the most pressing challenges most retailers faced in the past year were efficiency of their supply chain, implementing fulfillment options. So think of buy online, pick up in store, curbside pickup, same day delivery, contactless payment options, inventory management, safety protocols for customers and employees. And the one that I really love the most is recognizing and rewarding their frontline associates and leaders. So I always look for silver linings in anything in life. I'm big on that on LinkedIn. As you notice, I'm always posting about the positives of what I see. Just because a lot of the people will cover the negative, and I really like to focus on the positive. It's not that I don't see the negative. I choose to see. We live in a world of duality. So there's there's hot, cold, high, low. So there's always positive when there's negative going on. And the silver lining during the pandemic has been retailers' ability to realize the paramount importance of their employees. So many retailers like Target, Walmart, Home Depot, and I believe Lowe's, there's quite a few more, but provided numerous recognition bonuses in the past 15 months. I was really happy to see that. Best-in-class retailers have created what I like to call an inclusive culture that is congruent with and perfectly aligned with their culture, their convictions, and their values. So, and also their leaders practice humility, empathy, compassion, and truly desire to serve their employees. So this staunch commitment must start at the very top. So there's an expression I put in my book. I'm not really a fisherman, but I love the expression, is a fish stinks from the head down. And that means everything has to start at the very, very top. The culture, the values, the convictions all start with the CEO, the founders. It's filtered down to the C-suite and then on down to the store level. Employees practice and imitate what they witness from their leaders. So whatever the leaders are doing, justly or unjustly, it's being witnessed by the employees and the leaders in the stores. So the entire C-suite must be in lockstep with the culture, the values and convictions of the organization. So it brings joy and happiness to my heart to witness so many retailers investing in their employees. I've posted multiple times on this from all the different companies that are doing this, and I really enjoy seeing the frontline employees. It's a hard job working in retail. It's unthankful sometimes. It's hard physical work, and it's nice to see the employees and the leaders being recognized for what they're doing during the pandemic.
Oh, absolutely. You know, there's a lot of pivoting that needed to happen, and I know that a lot of key staff now work even here in South Africa, and I know that that's possibly true everywhere else in the world. So a lot of key staff members are now working remotely. I have an idea of some of the challenges. I know of some of the challenges, but from your perspective, specifically in the retail sector, what are some of the main challenges that you've seen with working remotely in the retail sector?
Well, first I'll kind of give an overview of the remote pros and cons, and then I'll kind of tie into the retail section. With the ubiquity of remote video technology available today, like what we're doing right now, telecommuting opportunities are skyrocketing. There are many advantages with offering remote working options for your employees. The list that I think of off the top of my head is increased productivity, improved employee health and work-life alignment, increased employee job satisfaction. Another one that a lot of businesses and retailers forget is the reduced associate expenses for commuting, fuel, and vehicle maintenance, and reduced company expenses. Employees are not using electricity, they're not consuming company resources, decreased equipment usage, resulting in fewer maintenance costs, decreased employee absenteeism, and ability to attract top-tier talent. So here are some of the perceived, and I say perceived with quotation marks, disadvantages. Lack of collaboration with colleagues, distractions at home or off-site location, productivity issues and concerns, unable to communicate effectively, the diminished ability for an individual to be involved with the daily activities. Leaders, this is a big one, leaders fearing their loss of power, control and influence over their employees because they're not kind of in the store or in the building. So at the core of this program is the propensity for some leaders, and not all, there's a lot of good leaders that easily can adjust to this, but some feel inadequate about their ability to directly control and influence their teams with some of their employees working remotely. So it is becoming a growing concern for many leaders to accept this positive yet productive trend while attempting to, relinquish their steadfast beliefs that this is nothing more than pure boondoggle. That's a word that I put in my book. It means the activity of doing nothing. You're moving around, but you're not getting anything done. Now tying into your retail question, as a store manager at the Home Depot in the year 2000, it was 21 years ago, I implemented a hybrid remote working option for my employees, and I had tremendous success with the program. So, and again, when I mention a hybrid version of remote work scheduling, I'm referring to a modified schedule of only a couple of hours a day, a half day, or a full day, and not an entire week or multiple days in a week. So this can be done because I was doing it 21 years ago. And from that point forward, I started implementing it at all the different companies where I was afforded the autonomy to do that. So I know this strategy can work, and it can massively, massively increase your talent acquisition and talent retention success across the breadth of your entire organization. So the first 3 chapters of my book are talent acquisition, brand recognition, and talent retention because of how important they are. And it all starts from there, and it synergistically grows with each pillar until the conclusion at the end of the book.
Jeffrey, I really like how you have been very balanced in providing the cons and pros of remote working. I believe that there are a lot of benefits, but there's a lot of challenges, but I don't think the challenges are insurmountable. They can all be overcome if one just looks at them strategically. But apart from the change in management style, and I don't even know how to phrase this question, but I need to ask. I need to ask the question anyway because I think it's practical. Do you think that succession planning is important, or how important do you think succession planning is? Because I'm simply asking from a person on the ground who has, in the last couple of months, had friends, family, and people in my life be there 1 minute and the next minute they're gone due to COVID or the unintended consequences of COVID. How do you work succession planning into being a successful retailer when you have this possibility of losing key staff, for example?
Well, I think succession planning is extremely important at any retailer at any level during any time. So succession planning is interwoven into a company's organizational culture. It's the bedrock of your culture. World-class organizations are fanatical about ensuring that their succession planning protocols are current, inclusive, that's a key word, inclusive and on point. In my book, I discuss how performance reviews and succession planning are symbiotic companions with employee and leader future growth and development. So the key activator is to ensure that all leaders within the organization are delivering honest, professional, unbiased, and consistent performance reviews. Performance reviews often get overlooked, Brigida, because it's 90 days, six months, a year. It's time to review the employees. A lot of times the employees are not being informed on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis of their shortcomings or things they're doing well. They get into the review, they're shocked by all the things that they didn't even know they were responsible for improving. It's a horrible experience. The employee and the leader feel let down. They feel that their leaders have been disingenuous to them and not sharing the information about what they could have improved upon, weeks or months earlier. And so the performance review process is crucial to succession planning. So true servant leaders constantly practice an acronym I created called ABT, or always be teaching. So great leaders are always sharing their knowledge with their employees whenever they can. So Target and Walmart are truly investing in their employees' future. I don't know if you saw this or not, but
I did see that post, and that really warmed my heart.
Isn't that they're offering free undergraduate degrees, which is basically a 4-year degree, where they will pay 100% of tuition and books. I mean, I posted about Walmart and Target, and I was super excited to see that because that's the average cost of a 4-year college in the United States ranges per year. I think it's between $20,000 and $25,000 per year. So if you think on the low end, it's $80,000, on the high end, it could be, again, this is the average now, $100,000 a year for 4 years that the employers are investing in their future of the employees. That was fantastic. I didn't think I'd ever see something like that. A lot of companies had like a limit up to like $5,500 or $5,000, whatever it is, for tuition and books, but to cover the full tuition. Now, there are some caveats. It has to be at certain collegiate institutions for certain degrees. But the point is that that's above and beyond. That's investing in your employees to the next level.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and they definitely ought to be congratulated for what they are doing. With the current sort of climate that we're living in, what are some of the key industry challenges with regards to employee and client retention? And then secondly, some of the challenges that you see retailers are facing with attracting new staff and clients?
That's a great question. It's kind of a circle. both the customer and the employee is they're attached at the hip. When you help one, you help the other. So talent acquisition and talent retention are synergistically connected, like two halves of a circle. I kind of think of two halves of a circle connected with one half, and then you have the other. It completes the circle. These two components must be more than tongue in cheek with each retailer or business. So if your business is vulnerable in these two areas, it's unfortunate. It will be extremely hard for your business to succeed long term. You might succeed in the short term, but not in the long term. So this is the reason that two of my first three chapters of the manual, like I already expressed earlier, are talent acquisition and talent retention. I actually did that on purpose because of how important they really are. So the retail sector already possesses a reputation for having unfavorable schedules, nights, weekends, holidays. It's a challenging work environment, both physically and mentally. And there's high customer engagement requirements. However, retail can be a very rewarding career choice because of the massive opportunities for employee growth, development, ascension, purpose, and engagement. So talent acquisition is the first pillar that I discuss in the manual. And it's probably the most important one of all 10. All 10 have a purpose, but if you can't hire the people, you're not going to be successful. The second most important one would obviously be the talent retention, which we'll talk about here shortly. But it is often the greatest detriment to any organization because, again, some executives, not all, but some, they don't place a remarkably high value on non-tangible programs that do not produce revenue or increase profit. So a lot of times the executives are looking at, well, is this going to help me increase revenue or increase profit? And if it doesn't, it kind of falls on the back burner. And this is one of those non-tangible programs that needs to be on the front burner permanently. So talent acquisition should be the focus of not just human resource professionals, but the entire management team. A lot of retailers that I consult with, it's just the HR personnel that are doing the talent acquisition. And I ask them why. The managers are out walking around, they're experiencing customers. I've recruited many customers to work in the stores that I was leading as a manager. When I'm out shopping, if I see good service, I ask them, hey, have you ever thought about a different career? I kept business cards on me. Nowadays, you have to find talent in unique places. And the technology industry does a very, very good job of this. They find talent in unique industries and they coach them up. So the organizations that are top of mind and dominant within their sector universally exhibit a fully committed upper echelon talent acquisition program that focuses on acquiring the best and brightest aspirants. In the fiercely competitive retail sector, many retailers, unfortunately, are grappling with attracting and retaining top-tier talent. So I revert back to my GAP acronym: growth, autonomy, and purpose. Again, how is your succession planning process? What is your policy on granting autonomy to your employees and leaders? And how does your culture and values align with employee purpose? So I would ask each retailer or business struggling to attract top-tier talent 3 questions. How is your onboarding program? How is your performance review process? And how is your organizational culture? So to tie into the first one, your onboarding program sets the tone for the experience each employee is going to have with your company. Is your program engaging, informative, and inclusive? Does your program cater to all 4 learning styles: visual, auditory, tactile, and kinesthetic? Does your program allow enough time for employees to assimilate the deluge of information being taught? There are retailers that I know that allocate 8 hours for their onboarding program. And then there are retailers that allocate 40 to 80 hours. So it's kind of not hard to see which organizations will have a much higher retention rate.
I know. I often laugh, when just talking to people in my industry, I say to people, well, how long does it take you to prepare? And, there was somebody that said 5 minutes, and others will say, 4 days, and others will say 3 weeks, 2 months. And that kind of gives you insight as to the kind of outcome that they can expect, because you can't get out what you don't put in.
Very perfectly said. One of the most powerful progenitors of talent retention is the protocols your retail organization has surrounding the performance review process. Again, we talked about this earlier. I can't stress this enough. I've seen long-term tenured people that were phenomenal at their job leave with a new manager takes over a department or a store, and the performance review process doesn't follow certain protocols. So this will determine if your employees and leaders feel inspired, connected, engaged, and are loyal to the organization. So I've seen this firsthand, and with consulting retailers, this process can run the gamut between an experience with superior professionalism, immersed in tangible, credible, and poignant action plans for future growth, or an interaction that is fraught with immaturity, massive egotism, biases, and control issues that will stymie the individual. So in the book, I discuss that every performance appraisal should encompass 4 behaviors. There's more, but these are the 4 basics ones that every review should have: consistency, honesty, unbiased assessments, and professionalism, to guarantee the individual will receive a fair evaluation of their performance. And then finally, organizational culture. I like to call it the bedrock of your organization. It's where everything is started. It's the foundation. And it's your culture is a system of shared assumptions, values, morals, and beliefs, which governs how people behave in your organization. So this culture is so important that I devoted 3 chapters in my book to organizational culture. And organizational culture has 5 main anchors in which it expresses itself. Number 1, the way the organization operates as business. Number 2, core values that are never negotiated or diminished by internal or external pressures. This one is one that really runs the gamut up and down. Core values are great when times are good, and next thing you know, they're diminished or removed when there's external pressures, sales are down, inauthenticity starts happening, integrity issues start popping up, stuff of that nature. Number 3, how do you treat your customers, employees, leaders, and again, vendors? This one is very, very important. Everywhere I've ever worked, it's let's take care of the customer. Let's take care of the customer. And I'm like, well, I'm going to take care of the customer, but can't we take care of the employees, the leaders, and the vendors at the same time? I've always believed that all 4 groups are equally important. The customer is not more important than the employee. And that unfortunately is not the motto in some retailers. The customers I understand they pay your salary. However, who's going to service the employees if there's no employee, or who's going to service the customers if there's no employees and leaders? You're not going to have any products if you don't have any vendors supplying you. So this one is the one that's probably the most often overlooked. Number 4, the extent to which autonomous behavior is allowed in making decisions, developing innovative ideas, and personal expression. I've posted many times on LinkedIn the Herculean feats that I was able to achieve when I was given autonomous behavior and I was allowed to have autonomy. Some retailers and businesses, it's tongue in cheek, they preach it. We give our leaders and employees autonomy, but whatever they come up with ideas, they're shot down. They're told stick to the protocol, stick to the planogram, etc. And you have to have those standard operating procedures in place. You have to have those. But some of the best ideas that ever came were from employees, customers, other leaders, and even vendors, because of having autonomy to share their ideas. Number 5, are employees committed to achieving corporate objectives? And lastly, I'd like to say organizational culture is a living and breathing energy that permeates throughout your organization. And culture is on display every day by the intentions and actions of all employees, leaders, and the entire C-suite team.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's a holistic approach. There's no cookie cutter solutions to running any organization, and retail certainly is no different. And having your ears on the ground and being open to feedback from your various sectors that make up the retail industry is very important. Just moving on to something else, tying into one of my previous questions, with so many job losses having occurred over the last couple of months, are there ways in which retailers can increase their net income even through a pandemic like what we're experiencing now?
Oh, that's another great question. Wow. I would say absolutely. The reason I say that is many retailers are posting strong quarterly earnings in revenue, profitability, and comp sales. So when it comes to profit/net income, there are usually 4 different ways to achieve positive numbers. Excuse me. Increase top line revenue, reduce expenses, decrease inventory, and increase turns. Many retailers are doing a great job of executing on all 4 strategies. the pandemic is a blessing in disguise for the retail sector because it accelerated the timeline for retailers to invest in their fulfillment strategies, digital offerings, omni-channel, and customer-centric positions. Retail is coming around full circle. Customers are yearning for a fully experiential environment, which harkens back to a bygone era of the 4 E's. I like to call it the 4 E's: engagement, experience, entertainment, and execution. Many retailers are increasing their differentiation. Think Target, Walmart, Costco, Home Depot, Lowe's, by creating proprietary brands which could skyrocket net income levels due to elevated gross margins. With proprietary brands, I love proprietary brands. I think it's a way that each retailer is in control of the pricing and cost structure, the quality of the product. They have adaptability. They can create exclusivity and brand loyalty. So absolutely, to answer your question, I really am I'm bullish on the fact that many retailers can still make a very good profit. Again, it comes down to the organizational culture that we've been speaking about throughout the entire show. I repeat this multiple times throughout the book. It's the most important thing you got to have is you got to have good culture. If you don't have that, it's not going to work. It'll last for a little bit of time, but it'll wane because customers will see that you're not authentic, you're not transparent, and you're not consistent.
Yeah, those things become manifest very, very quickly. And I've kind of kept my favorite question for last.
That's for last. There we go.
Best for last.
Okay, here we go. The finish line.
I want to know, I mean, just with the book in particular and your wealth of experience in the retail sector, how would you describe what you call a best-in-class retail organization?
Okay, no pressure. When I think of best in class, and I post about this a lot, so this will kind of come naturally to me. I'm always posting about best in class and top tier retailers. I think of there's like 10 different retailers. I think of Target, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, Costco, PetSmart, Kroger. Tractor Supply gets overlooked, unfortunately, but they're doing great. Kohl's and probably TJ Maxx. And people say, Jeff, why do you choose these 10 or these? It's either 10 or 11. That's the 10 I can remember off the top of my head. Each of these retailers, I believe, and I firmly believe, they live their values, convictions, and culture every day. Working in the sector for 30 years, I worked for many of these companies. I have connections still with a lot of these companies. I shop a lot of these companies. I truly believe I see it in their values and convictions and the culture. It's being lived every day. There's always going to be outliers that are on the ancillary edge. You're going to have a store here, a store there. That's going to happen in anything. There's no such thing as a perfect, company overall. I live in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Lombardi, our coach back in the 60s, he ran the play called the Power Sweep, and it still was never run perfectly, and that's one of the plays they focused on the most. So you're always going to have a few outliers, but generally these 10 companies, you can tell they generally care about people through their concerted efforts and their tangible actions. Each of these 10 retailers, I would say, again, in my humble opinion, has built an excellent ecosystem of outstanding organizational culture, creating an inclusive atmosphere, people-first behaviors, listening to customers, employees, leaders, and vendors, an unwavering commitment to sustainability, creating collaborative partnerships, differentiation through proprietary brands, giving back and investing in the communities they serve, a staunch commitment to innovation, investing in infrastructure, embracing change, and excellent career opportunities, providing exemplary customer service. Most of these, pretty much all of them, have really, really good customer service. Again, you're going to have outliers. They foster inclusion, and they have true servant leadership throughout all levels of management while investing in their employees' future growth and development. So again, this dovetails into my GAP acronym of, again, growth, autonomy, and purpose. So true servant leaders create an environment where trust, authenticity, honesty, and empowerment, as well as autonomy, can thrive and flourish. So servant leaders generally care about people. That's one thing I've always learned is when I first became a leader in the early 90s, I'm like, what is a servant leader? Does that mean I have to serve the people all the time? How does that work? And I realized that servant leadership is a mentality where you genuinely care about people and you have your employees' best interests at heart. It's not your own agenda. It's the store agenda. It's whatever's best for the people. And you really believe that. Don't get me wrong. There's always the whiff from what's in it for me. That's human nature. We all get that. But a servant leader generally cares about people and has their best interests at heart. So here are some of my strategies for engaging with your employees. These are shared as well in the book. Ask further feedback and ideas. Allow them to champion their ideas. I had a manager at Home Depot that I was shadowing when I was an assistant manager. He was a store manager, and I was asking him, how do you have so many people that are so fired up and engaged with these projects? And he said, it's really simple. I ask for feedbacks in meetings and huddles and stuff of that nature. And if they come up with a great idea, it's sound, it's within the confines and constraints of our organizational protocols and procedures, I allow them to champion the idea. I thought, wow, that's outstanding. Number two, they generally listen to their concerns, employees' concerns, and then address them with collaborative input. This one is a tongue-in-cheek a lot of times. The manager says, I'll listen to you, but then they give you their version of what should happen. That's not collaborative input. Collaborative input is, okay, here, I heard your issue, I heard your problem. How do you think we can address this? What do you think we can do? You get their input, and then you put that through the filter, again, of the company protocols and procedures, and then you come up with an idea. Number three, seek their aspirations and goals. Maximize their innate abilities by placing them in positions and departments that allow their strengths to flourish. I worked, again, at 8 different retailers. It's 20 plus different stores in 5 states throughout the country in the United States. And I would take over a store, and I was always amazed when I started speaking to each individual, department managers, assistants, all the employees. And you ask them, what are your aspirations? What are your goals? What do you love to do? And you'll find, like at Home Depot, you'll find a lady in paint. She's running the paint department. And I say, what do you love to do? She goes, oh, I love to garden. And I used to own my own gardening business. I'm like, well, what are you doing working in paint? Why aren't you over in garden? And you go talk to the gardenist, department manager, and you keep doing that throughout the store. And you realize that we all possess innate abilities to share our gifts with others. And the key is just to find out what those are and then put them in positions where they can succeed. Number 4, structured succession planning. We spoke about this in depth earlier. Provide a clear path for each employee and leader for growth and advancement opportunities. Number 5, and this one will build massive camaraderie, is work shoulder to shoulder with your employees in the trenches. The best managers are always hands-on. I loved being hands-on. If you're working in a store, you walk by and the employee's making a bale, the cardboard bale. You say, let me help you out real quick. It's only 5 minutes. There's a lot of carts in the outside in the shopping or in the parking lot. You say, hey, call a cart run and be the first one out there. If they're backed up on the registers, hop on a register for a few minutes. Now, the key is, if you're a store manager or an assistant manager, you can't do this all day long because you have to run the store. You have other responsibilities, but you can definitely build camaraderie with your employees by jumping in, working side by side with them. And what this does, Brigitte, is it's extremely effective at removing, again, the perceived, with air quotes, the perceived barrier that leaders or employees are different. We're all people. Number 6, challenge them with meaningful work. A lot of managers don't want to overload certain individuals. Well, the key is to what I call tap into each employee. So I remember taking over a Home Depot store that had 400 employees. It was a $1.5 million store. It was a beast. And I'm thinking 400. I said, I got to learn everybody's first and last name in the first 2 months. That was my goal. I got to learn their first and last name, which was challenging. But then as I'm learning their name, I'm like, hey, what do you love to do? And I found out that I could tap into each person, be it exercise or music or sports or something. And once you tap into them, they open up. It kind of is an icebreaker. It breaks down the walls. And then you can start saying, hey, what do you love to do? And you start challenging them. And a lot of times this only happens at the performance review. Again, we spoke about this earlier, where they're in the review. If it's a yearly review, it could be a monetary review, which it usually is. They're being graded on things, and they're like thinking in the back of their mind, I wasn't even challenged. I wasn't even given the opportunity. So they're kind of like a dragster stuck at the starting line. They're not allowed to show what they can really do. And the last one is to align their passions with your culture. What I mean by that is everybody has innate abilities we speak about, that they have passions that I speak about in the book. It's called intrinsic motivation or internal motivation. And if you tap into this, these are things that people do naturally. They don't expect any kind of reward for it. There's no carrot and stick methodology where, hey, if I do this, I get that. It's something that people really feel passionate about and they want to do. And if you can align their passions with your culture, you're going to have a lot of raving fans working for you.
I like that. That's a nice tagline. Align your passions with your culture.
There you go.
I really, really like that. Jeffrey, this has been incredibly insightful. I actually cannot wait to just review everything that you've shared here. I mean, this is, we've been live for 50 minutes and
has it been that long?
It has
wow.
just been, it's just been
seems like 15 minutes.
I really know.
Fun. It's really fun.
It's crazy. It was just jam-packed with so much information. There's a lot to dissect, a lot to learn, a lot that people can benefit from. And so, for anyone who's watched us live now, I know we've had people on all the different platforms. It would be amazing if you could share this with someone that you think is going to benefit from this. Anyone, and I don't believe that it's just for the retail sector per se, because I think a lot of the stuff that you've shared is valuable to any entrepreneur, to any business sector out there, because the principles of good business governance remains the same across the board.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great comment. I get asked this all the time. In fact, I think I made a post on LinkedIn about that people said, Jeff, why did you call it the ultimate business manual? And I'm like, well, retail is kind of my niche. 30 years in, you worked at all these different retailers. I kind of try to stay within my lane. But I've had multiple people reach out and say, Jeff, 7 of your 10 pillars apply to anybody with a business or a service. And I thought, wow, let me actually check into that. And they were right. So, yeah, it's surreal to see the manual in 19 countries around the world. It has 50 5-star reviews on Amazon. People are picking the book up and they're really sharing their thoughts with it. And a lot of my reviews, 85% have commentary on the reviews, which means people are really enjoying it. They're taking the time out of their busy schedule to write a review. And I'm proud of every single review I get. I post them on LinkedIn a lot because I want others to know that I'm really, really grateful. And I'm humbled by the support from so many people around the world. Somebody buys your book in Costa Rica and writes a review. It's like, wow, that's impressive. To me, it's I never thought the book would do so well. I wake up every day and think, wow, I'm so blessed and fortunate to be able to take this knowledge and help others. Because if I would have had this book, I tell you, if I would have had this book when I was younger, I would have avoided so many pitfalls. I would have had such a leg up, so many advanced information that I could have learned without having to go through the hard experiences. Now, some experiences you have to learn in life. You have to go through that for the perspective and the wisdom, but a lot of them you can learn. So it brings me joy to see that I'm able to help people. Like a brand new department manager grabs the book and at first they're overwhelmed because of so much information. I'm like, digest it, come back to it, like read one chapter, then wait a day or so, read it again, and then start also at the end of every chapter, I have a blank page for notes, so people can take notes while they're downloading the information and reading it. Obviously in the paperback only, but yeah, it's a business manual, it's an entrepreneur manual, it's a retail manual, and I like to call it a people manual because I really focus a lot about people. That's one thing that I post about a lot, as you notice, about soft skills and leaders really picking those up to learn. Because, there's 10 things that I mentioned in the book that are required to be a good leader before you promote them, and only one is a hard skill. The other 9 is all about soft skills, engagement, collaboration, motivation, and mentoring. So, yeah, it's really exciting to see the book doing so well.
Well, congratulations. And again, to those of you who are watching us over on Amazon Live, the book, The Ultimate Retail Manual, is in the carousel. So do have a look at that. And I encourage you to invest in this book, is the way I'd like to say it, because it's going to be an investment in your business, regardless of whether or not you are in retail. Jeffrey, before I let you go, a lot of people like yourself have got years and years and years of experience that they should document. So you are also a publisher and you help people get published. Tell us a little bit about that before you go.
Yeah, I started New Retail Ethos which is my main company, my consulting firm, and then New Retail Ethos Publications at the same time in 2018. There's a lot of it's overwhelming and daunting to publish your book from start to finish. There's so much information in there, and there's a lot of companies out there offering their services, but it's $5,000, $10,000. It's insane how much they're charging. And I self-published. I had the option to be published, and I reached out to Donna Serdula. She's a connection on LinkedIn, and she's been published and self-published, and she's doing well. I reached out to a lot of other people, and they said, well, when you self-publish, you kind of maintain full control over your brand, your royalties, content, stuff of that nature. So I help authors, first-time authors, established authors, it's more first-time authors usually, self-publish on Amazon. I walk them through the process. Our company walks them through the process. It's very reasonable price offerings. It's basic, intermediate, or advanced, depending on which package that you're looking to go with. And but it's a lot. And what's great about POD, print on demand, is that you can consistently update your book. Where when you're published, they do a first run of 10,000, first run of 20,000. Whatever's in there is in there. It ain't going away. So I republished or updated my book for 2021 in I think it was July. And I keep updating it every 3 or 4 months. I add new information to it. I keep it current. And that's one great idea that you can utilize when you're self-publishing. Yeah.
So it's easier to, iterations are easier. And in the sector in which you are, in business, change is a constant. Things are constantly evolving and changing, and living in times of uncertainty, things definitely are on the move, and you constantly to adapt. So I think it's brilliant that you mentioned when you do print on demand, you actually have this opportunity to update, especially when it comes to this kind of book, because you want it to be current, you want it to be relevant to people at the time when they're doing business. So I think that is a phenomenal benefit that I don't think I always ask people about their printing, in interviewing authors. I've always asked them about their process of getting published, and I don't think anyone's actually, I think you're the first person that's brought that important aspect up, which is very, very relevant to anyone wanting to get published.
Yeah, it's changed a lot I did some research. I went back. I spent the month of March 2017. I spent the whole month researching, should I get published? Should I self-publish? What should I do? And I came to the conclusion predominantly that self-publishing is the way to go. Now, there's a lot of marketing involved, a lot of self-promotion, a lot of advertising. We discussed that as well with our packages. But with the platforms available today, LinkedIn, oh, God bless LinkedIn. I tell you, it's amazing platform. The free version, the paid version, it's both an outstanding platform to get your brand out there. The key, though, is you got to be engaging. I engage with every single, as you notice, every single person that comments. It'll take me 2-3 hours sometimes. It'll be 8 o'clock at night. I'm tired. I just got done working out. I'm getting ready to go to bed. I'm like, oh, you got to go in and you got to engage, because these people, they're taking the time out of their day to engage with you, and they're commenting on your post. So, but yeah, self-publishing is definitely the way to go with Amazon. The print on demand is beautiful. A lot of times I'll come up with an article on LinkedIn. I'll think, wow, I need to add that to the book. That's new information. I got to get that in there. And 15, 20 minutes later, you've updated it. It takes Amazon sometimes a few days to update the process and stuff of that nature. But it's a great platform for people. Again, published people do well as well. There's advantages to publishing, but you lose a lot of control of your creativity and your brand. And so I always advise authors to please look at both sides. One author that when he wanted to get published, he lost 75% of his book changed. He published it, the book was published, and he said, Jeff, he goes, I didn't even notice it was my book. Now, again, not all publishers are like this. I fully understand. But you want to maintain control over your brand. And with self-publishing, you're able to do that.
And, you also, I think, you want to sort of decide, what is it that why am I writing this book? What do I want out of it? What's my end game? Because there are pros and cons to that whole publishing process. Not everyone has the time to self-market. So,
Correct.
be realistic about what it is that you can and can't do once your book is
Mhm.
published, because as you well know, it's hard work. You've got to be in touch with the people that you're aiming to sell to. You've got to be engaged. Books don't sell
Mhm.
themselves.
Yeah, it took me 17 months from inception until publication. 17 months. I know people, I have friends that 5 years later, they're still writing. I'm like, at some point, you got to pull the trigger. You got to just, and it's structure. I tell all new first time writers, set a time aside. You got to write 4 to 5 days a week. Get into the habit of writing. The more you write, the better you'll be. Have a deadline. You got to have a deadline because, yeah, I ran into a gentleman at Costco when I was shopping there, and we became friends because I shop there so often. And he's like, Jeff, can you help me out? I'm like, absolutely. He's like, I've been writing for 5 years. I'm like, 5 years? And that's a long time. And if you're in the fiction world, 5 years is an eternity with things changing. I'm sorry, nonfiction. So if you're doing fiction, it's one thing. But if you're doing nonfiction, like with my retail book, it's changing so rapidly that it's nice to be able to update that information. But it's a daunting task. A lot of people, they have an idea and a concept. So some of the free information I'll share real quick with your listeners is the first thing you want to do is come up with your title. That's the first thing you want to do. After I came up with my title, you want to make sure it's not copyrighted already. It's not already out there. So you go to the copyright website, type in your title. You can look for different titles out there. Make sure it's not copyrighted. And then after that, just come up with ideas and keep a notebook next to you. I keep one next to my bedside. So when I wake up, sometimes in the first 10 minutes when you first wake up, a lot of creativity comes to you. So write down just quick words, just one word. Like I was getting ready to do a global client meeting, and it was on the power of engagement. And what I looked at is these bullet points that I had listed became chapters in the book. And the book originally had 5 pillars, and it morphed into 10 pillars over the 17 months. And so the first thing is get the title down, title and then subtitle is very important. Make sure it's not copyrighted, and then start writing down your ideas, and then just start writing. You can always copyright it later. I'm sorry, you can always proof it later and get it line edited and all that, but just get the information down on paper or on your computer somewhere, but keep writing. That's the important thing. It's writing is like a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it becomes. And with all the editing tools that they have, Microsoft Editor, that's in Microsoft Word, there's a lot of editing tools out there that are free that you can use. But again, like you said perfectly, it depends on what you're looking to do. Some people, they don't have the time. They just want to put it and get it published, and that's cool. If that works for you, you have the resources to do that. God bless you, and whatever works. But we offer the packages that you can look at and see. And some people want to get published, and they say, listen, we're not a good fit. I think you should go after that role with what you're looking for. Go get published and do that way. And people like, Jeff, why would you turn down a client? Because I want to make sure that our clients are for life. I believe in building collaborative partnerships that last a lifetime. I learned that from Bernie Marcus, the CEO of Home Depot, when he said, we want customers for life. And it's respect is hard to gain and it's easy to lose. And if somebody spends their money on our program and they realize that, they should have been published, that's on me. I have to make sure that we're clarifying to each client what they're looking for and what we can do for them. So,
Jeffrey, I want to ask you, now that you're now a published author, successfully so, but also having been in the retail industry, how difficult or easy is it for you to, as a new author, to get your book onto the bookshelves? How do you convince a retail chain to carry your books?
That's for each person to decide for themselves. We discussed that in the packages. That's proprietary information, but there's pros and cons to having your book in a Barnes & Noble and stuff of that nature. You have to look at the royalties that you're gonna either lose or gain when you do that. Amazon, you get much more royalties versus having your book in a store. Having your book in a store also has disadvantages where Barnes & Noble might buy 100 copies of your book, and if it doesn't sell, it gets returned. So you have to look at all the different factors with having your book in stores. Now, you can have your book on their website. That's not a problem. You can get that on there, but to have it in their stores, there's some hoops you got to jump through. There's some legalities. You're going to lose a lot of royalties if it's in there, because again, they have to mark their book down substantially. There's the print on demand that you have to pay. So there's different quantitative factors that you have to you have to consider with that. So again, it's each person deciding. Some people just want their book on the shelves. They want to be able to walk into Barnes and Noble and say, hey, look, it's my book. And that they're looking for more of that. Other people want to maintain the control of the book. They want to maintain the royalty streams. So it just depends on each author and what they're looking to do. There's no right or wrong answer, to be honest with you. It's just what fits within your brand and your narrative and what you're looking to do.
What I do like about your book, though, is the colors of your book, the yellow against the blue. Was there a thinking behind that? Because it does stand out very well.
Hey, now you're talking my language now. I love it. I'm heavily into feng shui, as you know. Have you seen me post about feng shui on LinkedIn? In feng shui, it's about energy, and the colors were chosen specifically because blue is a cheerful color, yellow is a happiness color, and then I wanted the white to blend in. So if you look at all my logos for my companies, it's blue, yellow, and white. I love those colors. Blue is my favorite. Yellow is my second color that I love. And when I was a leader, I instinctively would wear a yellow shirt for all my walks, vice president walks, CEO walks. And I started thinking, why do I keep wearing yellow? And in feng shui, I realized with my Kua number, it goes by your birth date and what sign you are. Yellow is my power color. Believe it or not, everybody has a power color. And then I'm wondering, why do I love blue so much? And I had a feng shui consultant with Mei Hua Lin. She's the actual consultant that designed Trump Tower. Trump paid her $2 million. I think it was around $2. It was a couple $1 million to design the tower. And I had a consultation with her, and she said, well, you have a lot of fire in your chart. So you instinctively gravitate towards blue because the water helps balance out the fire in your chart. So I've always loved blue. I love yellow. It's my power color. And then, of course, white is purity. So you combine all those colors together. I like the way they pop up with each other. It was done. It was done with all feng shui principles. Another thing that I did that people rave about is I double spaced the wording in the book. So if you open the book, it's an easy read. It's 8.5 by 11. Again, chose on purpose because during that month of discovery in March of 2017, I realized that most books are 6 by 9. That's the most popular. They're single spaced and they're hard to read. People say, I'm reading for a while, my eyes get sore, I got to put on my glasses. And I'm like, well, why don't I just make it a little bit bigger, do the double spacing, have the bigger font, the bigger size book and stuff of that nature. So, and then my wife came up with the idea for the blank pages at the end of each chapter. She's like, well, why don't you have a page where people can write notes because you're giving them so much information. And instead of writing in the margins, you have a whole page for that. And you can still write the margins, but that was something that came up. That was very, very. I get a lot of people saying that it's a very easy read. I loved how it was double spaced, the size of the book. It's a big book though. It's 8.5 by 11, so it's the size of a full page basically. It's 372 pages, and it has 25 chapters. So it's a great read, and anybody that's read it from cover to cover generally enjoys the topics. I've had CEOs reach out to me and say, Jeff, I've been doing this for a while, and I never heard about the no limit concept, and I never heard about this, and the scaffolding technique. You speak about all these things that are not really discussed in retail. I've never heard feng shui being discussed in retail. Now, Brigitte, I was talking about this 20 years ago with feng shui, 20 years ago, and it's still not being talked about today. And it's not an ancient art that's hard to learn. I mean, there's principles with it, but it's how energy moves throughout a space. So I did an experiment one time, and I share this in the book. On a Saturday at a Home Depot, very busy time at 1 o'clock, I told all the department managers for 1 hour, I'm going to do something. And then I'm going to call you all back to the training room and discuss and see what you found out. And all I did was take the big 16-foot ladders that are in the store, and I put them in the main aisles, the racetrack of the store. That's all I did, nothing else. And an hour later, everybody comes back and like, oh my God, what did you do? People were upset. They were yelling and screaming. There was customer complaints. And I felt bad about that because I kind of self-induced that. But that 1 hour was pivotal to showing them that, you know what, you got to keep all the aisles open. It's like taking a 5-lane freeway and narrowing it down to 2 lanes. What happens? People get upset. They get frustrated. Their schedules are, and the same thing happens when you can't. So one of the great silver linings of the pandemic was that a lot of the retailers emptied out their main aisles. So when you go into a Walmart or a Target, they used to have all the stackouts in the aisle. And now it's opened up, the energy's flowing, people are more happy and more friendly and cheerful. And yeah.
It's amazing, and I mean, I've loved some of the pivots that have happened during the pandemic, and that's one of those. Nothing frustrates you more when you're trying to work your way through a store and you kind of got to squeeze
Mhm.
against people all the time, or it's uncomfortable and you can't get your cart around. You're like, come on, just give us a bit more space here. Because if the experience is better, clients are going to be more inclined to stay longer and buy more. We've recently
Mhm.
had a boutique store open up close by to us, and my goodness, what a pleasurable experience. You walk in there and you feel like you want to linger longer.
Yeah, that's because
you,
the
you
energy is
know
positive. Yeah. Yep.
yes, because that experience, it's a whole, it's the layout. I love that you talked about the feng shui, um,
Mhm.
of the store. And I don't think a lot of retailers even give that a thought. But, looking at this boutique store and some of the high end stores, you see that they give more, like that. It shows respect for your
Mhm.
clientele, is what I think.
Perfectly said.
It
Yeah.
respects me as a
Mhm.
person, walking in there and me wanting to spend time, and I'm going to be more inclined to buy more because I enjoy being there. It's
Mhm.
as opposed to going into a store and all you want to do is just grab and run,
Get out.
because
Right.
you're like, I don't want to spend 2 more minutes than I need to in the store. I want to just get what I get and get out. It's a
Yeah.
very different experience as to something that's welcoming, makes you want to stay, makes you want to save up more money because you want to go to that store.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Again, I was doing this 20 years ago at the Home Depot, and I would have managers coming up to me and saying, "What are you, a kook, a new age, a weirdo?" And I'm like, "Listen, feng shui is very. Here's an easy way to explain feng shui. You ever walk into a space and you feel like you just said, you feel comfortable, relaxed, pleasant. It could be any space. It could be nature. It could be a friend's house. It could be a store. And then you walk into a place and you feel chaotic. You feel discombobulated. You feel like, I got to get out of here. That's really what it is. It's you're
Yeah.
intuitively sensing the energy of the space. And I tapped into this again at Home Depot. God bless the Home Depot for all the experiences and the autonomy I was afforded there. And I share all these experiences throughout the book. Is that we all feel this, we sense things. It's all about energy. And 20 years ago, people didn't want to hear about energy. In fact, sometimes they don't want to hear about it now. So I get asked about I've never heard anybody talk about feng shui in retail. And it's not that I'm a feng shui expert and a feng shui consultant. That's not my wheelhouse. But a couple of techniques you learn along the way is energy flows like a river. It meanders like a river when it flows the best. And we built our house with feng shui principles. Believe it or not, we built our house back in 2001. And it's not hard to understand. It's making sure that aisles are open, shoppable, and accessible. The lighting, like whenever you have a burnt out light bulb, people are like, Jeff, why are you so fanatical about a burnt out light bulb? Because it contributes to the overall energy. The signs on the outside of the building. I get asked, Jeff, you spent an entire chapter on store environment. And you're talking about the parking lot. What does the parking lot really matter? It's the first impression that people see when they come into your location. If you got potholes everywhere and carts, I've been in other retailers' parking lots, and I've seen the wind take the cart and it runs right into somebody's car. And I'm thinking, now granted, can you avoid that every time? No, but if there's 300 carts in the parking lot, that's going to be an obvious option that could happen. So a lot of times there's only one lot attendant, and Costco, Home Depot, and Lowe's do a great job of getting their carts clean. But people are like, Jeff, why are you spending so much time talking about the parking lot? Because it's the first impression in feng shui. It's where the energy starts. So imagine you pull into a retailer's parking lot. There's a pothole. It bangs your tire, right? You get into your parking space. You see a cart that's right by your car. You move the cart to put it into the cart corral because you don't want to hit your car. You're walking into the store. The trash is overflowing. And it's just one of those things where it's just not setting a good example. So that's kind of feng shui is basically how you feel within any space.
Absolutely. I must tell you, one of the things that I have really appreciated about the pandemic and going into stores is that the carts are all clean.
Yes. Yes. Spray them down, wipe them down. Hopefully
It
that'll
has just
continue.
been, it used to just give me the creeps. I mean, I always used to carry these a wad of wet wipes with me and wanting to clean the carts before I touch it, because I'm like, ew, I don't want to touch the cart. But now that they're being cleaned continuously in between every single client. It's like, wow. So some of the changes like that, I really, really hope that will be kept up post pandemic.
I think you got a good point there. I'm looking forward to seeing them continue. And really what it is the energy of attention. I think attention to detail is what happens in feng shui. They're making sure the carts are clean, the aisles are open. You have the contactless payment options. The employees are being respectful of people's distance and stuff like that. We all have a 3-foot proximic bubble around us. And over in Europe, when I've had friends visit over there, they get a little closer. It's just because they're warm and friendly. And with the United States, we have our bubble a little bit. That's our comfort zone. So it's just how energy moves and flows. And so I get asked that all the time. Jeff, why are you discussing feng shui in your book? Isn't that an ancient Chinese art? And all this other stuff. And it's not really hard to understand. But when I do consulting with all the retailers and retail clients and businesses, that's one of the things that we discuss is the feng shui of your parking lot, your building. We cover lighting, we cover fixtures, we cover everything. And people are like, good gracious, I never thought there was that much involved in just running a store or a business. And every little thing counts. And so people say, well, Jeff, everything can't be important. And I'm like, yes, everything is important because it's the brand and your image. So in the book, I talk about image, perception, reality. When a customer walks into your store, they're presented with an image. Okay, That becomes a perception in their mind, which then becomes their reality. So when you walk into a store, that's called the mouth. That's called the mouth of the store. If it's congested, you can't get in, the trash is overflowing, it's unsafe, it doesn't have good energy to it. So the people that implement these changes are amazed at how many customer complaints go down, the employee happiness and energy goes up. People just feel better because it's clean, it's organized, it's shoppable. Like you said about your boutique, the same thing. And it's not really hard to implement, but it takes attention and it takes consistency.
And it's the full gamut. It's not just one of those things. You've got to do all of those things. As you were mentioning, everything can be perfect, but when you get to the till point and they don't have contactless payment options, you kind of like, that's not what I was expecting. I don't want to be touching this machine that allows right. I don't want to be touching the keypad. That can sort of sour the experience at the final point of contact. So it's paying attention to all those little details. Jeffrey, this was amazing. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know we've gone a little bit over time, but I really appreciate all your input, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, I thought it was important to cover some of the extra stuff. Normally we're going about an hour, but you were bringing up some very good questions, and I wanted to make sure that the listeners, it's not just about selling the book. Trust me, I love selling the book and everything like that, but it's about helping others. That's my intention, and my intention generates my karma, and that's why I have good luck in life and good things happen to me, because I'm always trying to help others. In fact, people say, Jeff, you should probably stop sharing so much information on LinkedIn. You could charge for that. I'm like, well, that's who I am. I've always been a sharer. I like to help others. And I believe when you help others, people help you. It comes back around in a circle. So it generates good karma. But yeah, I hope your listeners really enjoyed the show. And I hope that I added value to their lives.
I think you absolutely did. And I want to just give a huge, big shout out to everyone who's joined us over on Amazon Live, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Twitter. We appreciate that you stopped by to say hello and spend this time with us. So much good value that we got out of this show and interview with Jeffrey on his book, The Ultimate Retail Manual, which is not just for retailers, may I add, and it is in the cart on Amazon Live if you're watching us over there. Jeffrey, thank you again. A huge big thanks also to the viewers. You're watching Books with Bridgetti, and so from us, it's goodbye for now. Until next time, stay well and stay safe.
Thank you.